Can we, I don't know if everybody's not on the screen, but everybody that has opened and had people in the building, wave your hand. Those that have not had a human.
We've opened.
Those that have not opened yet, raise your hand. Okay. Well, we've been open here 3 weeks. One of the questions that's going to be coming up is, what do the first 2 weeks look like? We were very light the first week. The second week, by light, I'm talking about a little over 200. Our normal's 1,400. The second week was a little bit more, and the last 2 weeks have leveled off. We've had stormy weather the last 2 Sundays. That may have had something to do with it, but we are way below our normal numbers. When we were doing Zoom only, streaming, live streaming the service, not on Zoom, but we had way more people watching than attended our services. Who else wants to contribute on that?
I will, Gary.
Hey, Patrick.
We have had 3 weekend services now. We were able to open up on a limited basis in venues that it said 25% or less of the occupancy, or 50 people, whichever's less. So we just picked our biggest venues and said 50 people. And we had 4 ready to go, and we did registrations, and we had 100 people between 2 venues. The next week, the governor changed the goalposts, and we were able to have up to 100 in a venue. So now we're just doing, maybe it's now even up to 200 in a venue. So we just moved all back into our auditorium this 2 weeks ago. I have not seen any of it firsthand because I've been on quarantine at home. But it appears to be going well. But like you, we have a lot of people watching online, and that's what they're choosing to continue to do. We don't have any support ministries. Children's ministry is still doing things online. Until people are comfortable coming back, I think this is the direction we go in. We have a couple hundred people, and it's a hybrid service. We're recording it early. It's the same thing that we push out on the weekend electronically through Facebook and our app and everything else. And then we have host pastors that will be in the room in each, well, there was each venue, but now the main venue, so that there's actually some live interaction and some singing with masks on, because that's the law here now. But so far, it appears to be working, and my team is running in after and cleaning everything up and spraying everything down.
Are you taking registration? Does someone have to register to attend the services?
Register through our online, which we use, Church Community Builder.
Okay. Anybody else?
Patrick, how many people normally attend, and can you speak to how the online registration was perceived by your people?
Well, it said we really need to know. We're not doing it to register you so that we can tell the state you were here in case anything happens. It's not about contact tracing. I know there was fear about that. For us, we want to know who's in your group, who's in your family group, so we can put 5 seats together or 3 seats together and keep them still separated by the 6-foot requirement. And we're only putting out as many chairs as we're going to have participants. And so I think once we put that word out, people have been pretty good about that. At the same time, they're getting the same experience by watching on the app or on Facebook. So we've encouraged their small groups to maybe gather, because now we're in what they call phase 2 here. You can have up to 5 people from outside your family gather in your home. So say, hey, maybe your small group breaks up into smaller groups and you go into each living room and watch it that way.
We did not group chairs by 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s. In our contemporary service, where we have chairs, took out every other row. And then, so we left full rows there, and we depend on our ushers to separate people side to side. In the sanctuary, we just use every other pew for our spacing.
If I can jump in here, Ken from Michigan. Even though our governor has held us back in a lot of things, the church, we've actually been meeting probably for 10 weeks. We started out with just the worship team families that were in doing the live stream. And then we moved it up to staff and families, and we had about 100 at that point. And I think it's been 5 weeks now that we have been registering. This past Sunday was the first 2 service Sunday. So we are 1 service Sunday for, I think, 4 weeks. And we register like the other churches are. We have pews. So we actually rope off every other pew. And that, and we started setting up procedures when we dismiss. The ushers dismiss from the back to the front. And we ask everybody just to file outside and not to stand around and congregate. Works pretty good. And then with 2 services, we left enough time that we could flip the ropes so everybody sits in a clean row that hadn't been used the previous service. We do a little fogging, sanitizing bathrooms, door touch points, and we're ready for our next group. And we hold open all the doors with door stops during entry to just keep down people having to touch stuff.
Yeah, we do that also. All the doors are propped open.
Can I ask Ken a question about, do you check people in once they get there? Because you have visitors, you have pre-registered.
For us, we ask them to pre-register, and then that way we know if we would have an outbreak, who to reach for that Sunday. But if someone walks up, we just write their name down. And if they're a new visitor, we try to gather a little bit more and reach out to them during that week too. But
the thought of being able to reach out to people that were in a service with someone that has contracted COVID-19 applies to us now. We did have someone in our sanctuary service last week was going to have a surgical procedure later in the week. So they went for their pre-op checkup and they were tested and found to be positive. So by having people register on our website, we do have their email, and our business administrator put out a notice that someone in that service has tested positive and encourage people to get tested if they're concerned. But it does help by having people register. You are able to immediately reach out, contact them, and let them know if there is a problem. And of course, we followed that up by going in depth about the procedures and steps we're taking to make sure that all our employees and members are safe.
Hey, Gary.
Yes.
One thought I have on this whole contact tracing thing. For those of you who are on here who don't know, my wife and I and my oldest son and his wife were all tested positive back on the 8th of June. So we were quarantined at home. And it's my first day back in the office. But one of the things that they do is that the health department calls you and wants to know where, who did you contact within the 2 days prior to being tested positive? And, well, what about the week before? And they're trying to get names out of you. They're trying to do the contact tracing. But we had already taken care of that the day that I got tested. The day that we found out that my wife had it and I got my test results the next day, we had already contacted everybody that we knew through the church to reach out to my staff and anybody else that may have been in contact with me. Because if you waited 3 or 4 days before the health department called, you've got now other people who could be positive out there spreading it around, and they could be totally asymptomatic. Like my son never had any symptoms. He never would have been tested if we hadn't been told to, because that my wife tested positive. So there is something to be said for you don't want to share people's personal medical information, but you do want to be able to share with those on your registration list that, hey, we found out somebody that was in this service where you were there tested positive, and you may want to get yourself checked out.
But on the registration, that's a huge group, but also the people that are visitors and that come unregistered, they have to be notified too, right?
I'm not sure how we're doing that. for people that weren't registered. I don't know that we had any. I'd have to check with my business administrator. Anybody else that can speak to that?
We did. We had people that were not registered online. They had an ability to go to an overflow lot, and we had 4 different venues that served different age groups, and they were able to go to that lot, register at that point, and then they send them to rooms that had openings. And we were a lot like Patrick in what we did. We had 4 venues, had about 300 people ability. 2 weeks in a row, we had around 150, and our goal is to increase those to where they're at capacity. Then we'll think about opening the sanctuary. So that is not at the point yet. And we're a 1,600 seat sanctuary, so we're just trickling up. So.
Okay.
And we're using Eventbrite for our registration. And if you come up and you haven't registered and there's space available, our people will go ahead and register you in the system, and that way you're part of the list for being at that service.
Rob had his hand up, Gary.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Bob.
we were open the first Sunday just yesterday, and we had people pre-register. We had 120 people that were pre-registered. Only 80 showed up. We did have one visitor come that nobody recognized. Of course, we're requiring everybody to wear masks. So this person had a mask on, and nobody really knew what it was. And everybody was coming to the table, and all the members that pre-registered just checked off and then were seated by an usher. But this gentleman refused to register and just walked on by and said he was going to church, and sat through the service. So that may happen to you. So we've had one person come that nobody knows who it was, and we have no information about the individual.
Well, you don't feel comfortable quizzing people that are wanting to visit your church. You don't want them to have to fill out an affidavit or show their identification.
Marie has her hand up, Gary.
Go ahead, Marie.
So when you pre-register and they come, how do you identify them? I mean, do you have somebody there that is checking them off the list? Or how do you identify those that have pre-registered and are really there? And does that make sense?
We are not, as far as I know, we are not checking people off. We've never had as many people show up as registered. And I'm sure that when he sent out the notice, he sent it to everybody that registered.
I'll tell you what we're doing is we set up 3 additional tables right outside the entrances, very large signs that say you must check in. After you've RSVP'd, the RSVPs will close on like a Friday for each of the services that we do have indoors. And when you walk up, there'll be very, very friendly ladies greeting you and asking for your name, your family name, and they will check you off. If you are not currently on the list, they just ask for your name. And to try to speak to Rob's concern, we do have comment cards inside the worship center. We don't encourage that because then you'll be doing another touch point, but we could encourage them to fill out a comment card or a guest sort of card in that case. But we do know who they are because we've asked for their last name at the door.
Has everybody removed their hymns and pencils, pens, comment cards, prayer cards, furniture, tables, chairs from the lobbies?
All of it. Yep.
Gary Joe has his hand up.
Go ahead, Joe. There you go.
Yep. So I'll just be brief, but we opened for the first time in 15 weeks this past weekend, and we normally have 12 to 1,500 come through on a weekend. So we had 3 services this weekend: a Saturday evening and 2 Sundays. We opened the time between the 2 Sunday services up a little bit to give us a little bit more time to clean, and we had about 250 people come through. We don't pre-register. It hasn't seemed to ever work for us for any events that we've had in the past. So we didn't do any kind of pre-registering. We did send out a survey prior to opening up to kind of gauge the response of our church, and it's, getting close to the holiday here, so we're not sure, but anyway, and pretty much doing everything, all the little details that you guys have already spoken about.
Okay. We had people pre-register because we wanted to have enough seats for them. We have 4 alternate venues that we could do overflow to, but we've never had to do that. And by pre-registering, we know what to expect ahead of time. Now, on the 12th of July, we're going to loosen things up a little bit. We're in phase 3 here in Nashville, but they did just pass a thing saying it was mandatory that you wear a mask in public. But since we've never used these overflow, we're going to set up some of the overflow rooms as worship venues. And if you want to be in an environment where everybody's required to wear a mask and everybody's required to be spaced 6 feet apart, you would register to go into one of these overflow venues. If you're not as worried about being in a room with people with masks or strict distancing, you'll be able to go to our regular sanctuary and the gym for the contemporary service.
Hey, Joe, one question. Well, 2, where are you located? And 2, what are the restrictions in place in your location that you're not registering for? Like where we're at, we had restrictions on the total, keeping the numbers really low. So we needed to know if we were going to blow that out or if we're not even going to come close. So I'm just curious in your case.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're in southeastern Pennsylvania, so just outside of Philly. So we're probably, we were hit hard early, and now we just went to green on Friday and had our first service this past weekend. So, but we have 3 venues, and all of our venues are spaced at 6 feet. We had our main worship center, which would handle with the spacing 250 people. We had a student center that we opened up that would seat 140, and we had a tent outside. So if you didn't want to wear a mask, you couldn't come in the building. If you didn't want to wear a mask, you had to go out to the outside venue. Now, the outside venue was a tent. There was maybe over all 3 services, maybe 35 people that went outside. We had a storm come through, so that a bad storm right in the middle of Saturday night service. That was interesting. Yeah, I hope that answers kind of what you're looking for.
Thank you.
In Tennessee, our governor just made it known that you could not place restrictions on a church. And so it's up to each church to do things in a smart way.
But I'm in Tennessee, Gary, down the street from you.
Yes.
I'm in Brentwood.
Right, I know you said.
Yep. So we've been having funerals and weddings with reduced numbers, but we start worship back on the 12th. It's a requirement to wear a mask. We're doing registration. We're assigning seats. We're a pew church, so we're going to assign rows.
Mm-hmm.
And we will have someone taking your temperature and checking your name off, so that because we all know the virus is coming into your building, right? Mm-hmm. And so just to be able to let people know, just as you did, Gary, that we had someone had the virus in a service that you were a part of, just to be able to push that information out to them. So that's how we're going to do it. And we'll have an overflow section in our sanctuary. We're not designating other rooms though. We're a 1,600 seat sanctuary, and we're going to only have 200 people because we're not going to do the balcony. We're going to phase into the balcony. Just being concerned, about, the encapsulated molecule droplets that can come over the balcony, even with a mask, so that we just want to start helping our congregation to feel comfortable coming back into the building and knowing, so that how can we make that happen and see and just kind of live into it. I'm sure that's what you're doing as well. How do we live into this? Cleaning between services as y'all are, disinfecting between services as y'all are doing.
Sandy mentioned taking people's temperature. My business administrator bought multiple digital thermometers, but we've never used them. Is anybody else taking temperatures? Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to do, I don't want to do that, but we have a restart task team. Then we have an advisory team with, you know, the head of Vanderbilt Medical Center, all those things that you probably have access to in your communities also.
Mhm.
And they are strongly encouraging the temperature. Like, I figure, you know, you're not going to come to church if you have a fever, you know, but I was outvoted.
I know
Understand.
for a fact that First Pres in Greenville, South Carolina is, I'm in Virginia, but we have contact with them. It's an ECO church. They are doing temp checks, and they've been doing them for a month. If you want to talk to them about how it's going.
Okay.
We're actually doing it for all staff and volunteers. Easier to maintain at that level than for anybody that walks in your door on a Sunday morning. But we do know that this fall, when our school reopens, we're going to have to test every child for temp coming in the doors. We're looking for the non-contact, because wiping it down every time after every person is just not going to happen when you have, you know, 800 students coming in the door in the morning. Yeah, I will just say my experience being, you know, COVID positive, out of the 4 people in my family that had it, only 2 had a fever that would have triggered them to not go into a place. So I have a lot of questions.
Gary, Alan Alan has his hand up.
Okay.
Hey, so yeah, we're down here in North Carolina. We have 5 facilities, and we currently only have 2 open. One being the largest here at our main campus. We sit about 1,700. We currently have it set up for about 600 people. We started about 3 weeks ago. We do it on Thursdays, and we do the pre-registration by the phone. You get your, we also actually do pre-screening. So everyone in your home, that we ask those questions as far as what you do if you go to any doctor's office. When they get here, we just ask for their registration, just so that confirmation, so that we can see that they did do that. And then we temperature check everyone that is coming through the doors. So what we've done is we open up about an hour before service, and our largest crowd has been about 515 people, no hiccups so far. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Gary, we're going to have to pick up the pace if we're going to stay on track, brother. Got another question on your slideshow?
Well, instead of breaking for that, I'm just going to read the questions. Dealing with mask. We strongly encourage it. Are you requiring, who is actually requiring a mask be worn?
We will be.
Okay. Do y'all furnish masks? Okay, we furnish masks also for those that will want. We do not make people wear them at this point in time. The ones that require it, how are you handling that if someone refuses to wear a mask? Stephanie?
We are in the middle of starting up in July, and we are going to require it. So we actually have to require it in Virginia, because the governor requires if you have an indoor event, you have to have a mask. So I can't weigh in on experience.
All right, I'll tell you what we're doing here is our leadership, especially as someone mentioned already, that the governor is saying the churches are somewhat exempt to some of these rules. And so he tries to encourage the churches and leadership to make the right choice. But as a church, what we've chose to do this last Sunday, because Governor Cooper in North Carolina was not very clear. Dave, I see your hand, brother. So he says, we're going to make the staff wear masks this Sunday for the next couple of weeks, but we are not going to bully anyone. We're just going to make the recommendation. We're going to let people be adults, and if you ever have to step up and bully someone, then you're going to have a pretty big issue on your hands with that. Dave, you had your hand up?
Need to unmute, Dave.
Sorry about that. We are supplying masks to anyone that doesn't have them, but we want to make our congregation comfortable. And so they're not requiring. If someone will refuse, we're not denying them access.
Okay. All right.
And one of the things that on a different different webinar, somebody had suggested having a secondary room for those who refuse to wear a mask, so that you can say, oh, well, if you're comfortable without that and you're going into your venue where everyone else is wanting to wear a mask, it's better to have a secondary place. Washington State, it's the law now, so we're pretty much saying you have to wear a mask because that's what the governor's orders are, and there are no exemptions here for religious institutions.
Anything else on mask?
We have provided the cheaper ones at if anyone needs them, and then we have a counseling room after services that if you want to talk to a pastor, we have those sitting right as you go in the door because you're getting ready to get pretty close to someone. Especially for our outside venue, we encourage people to come in to speak with a pastor after that venue. Then those masks are right there at the door. If you want those cheap paper masks, we have those available.
Okay. Dave, go ahead.
We just started up like 2 weeks ago, so we're into our second week. And like everybody else was saying, you know, our online attendance during the shutdown was greatly increased, even above what our normal attendance is. But then once we started having services, we had things in place to be able to have our primary sanctuary is 9:30, and then we've got another venue that's 11 for a more progressive service. But we never even had to use our overflows. We've got the ability to have, you know, like one service in one place and 3 different overflows, and we haven't even been using the overflows.
Okay.
So it's been good. It gave us a chance to get a soft start and figure out all these things. But some of the things that people are trying to do this is from facility manager standpoint, it's not for, you know, the general public. So I think some of what they're expecting is excessive. What I ended up having to do now is I've got restrooms that have, say, 8, you know, between maybe 8 stalls. We've shut them down now so that all except the ADA stalls are open, and they're now single use.
That's interesting.
And we're sanitizing. I can't say disinfecting because, you know, to disinfect, it's got to sit for 10 minutes. So we're sanitizing in between each use.
Wow. Anybody else on that topic? Well, the next question is, what is the best way to sanitize wooden pews? We are taking a different approach. I found this product through another member, but it does not chemically kill bacteria or viruses. It uses a mechanical kill. And I can't explain this fully, but the solution comes with nanoparticles in it. Once you apply it to a surface, if you were to look at that surface under a microscope, it would look like a carpet of needles. And as people cough and sneeze and speak, the droplets fall on these surfaces and they're impaled. I know this sounds crazy, but it does have an EPA registration number saying it's effective. And the other thing that is advantageous about this product is on solid surfaces, not soft surfaces, you only have to apply it once a month. It stays on the surface, and if the surface is clean and you fog it with this, it is coated, and the only way it comes off is to be abraded. People have to turn that door handle, or they have to touch the pew multiple times. So we're going to spray the hard surfaces in our building once a month. We're going to spray the soft surfaces in our building, fabric on pews and chairs, probably every week. The product is expensive. It's not concentrated. It's ready to use, but it goes a long way. What other products are y'all using besides a normal disinfectant? Anything else out there?
What's the name?
Service Med. It is SERVISMED is the company and product. They also have some other products that we haven't tried or used. Who is it that's using the pills that they drop in water and doing the fogger? Is that, or you are? Okay, Hal, where do you get those? Who makes those? Hal, did you raise your hand?
I got mine off eBay. Patrick sent out a link, and I looked at the package and got them off eBay.
Yeah,
Not eBay, Amazon.
Yeah, I got mine off Amazon. They're called Brew Tabs. But tomorrow I get my Pathosan system installed, so we're going to be converting over.
What did you call that, Patrick? Blue Tab?
Brew, BRU tabs. They also go by, I think, Pru or Pure, PUR tabs. Pure.
Okay.
This is Matt with Appleton Alliance up in Wisconsin. We just actually put our Pathosan system in about 3 weeks ago, and we opened for the first time yesterday. And we went around with it's a mister. It's not a fogger, but we use the Pathocide product, and we use that in between every service. We bought 4 of them in order to get our whole room done in a 15-minute window. 15 minutes to apply, 15 minutes to dry, and then we had 15 minutes to load the next service. And so it would seem to go really well. I haven't debriefed with my facilities team yet in detail, but they were able to get it done in the 15 minutes, and we felt really comfortable with the technology and the application. So we felt really good about it.
I've heard nothing but good things about Pathosans.
Yes. So far, I've been very impressed with it. Very impressed.
And Joe has his hand up down there,
Yep.
Gary.
Joe?
Yeah, so I ordered an electrostatic sprayer, but they're very expensive and they're hard to get. I have one ordered through my cleaning supply. I don't expect it till September. So we improvised, and I have a cleaning company, Franklin Cleaning Service and supplier, and they were very helpful. So I have a disinfectant that has to stay on the surface for 1 minute and to kill coronavirus, a type N product. So it's EPA registered, and we bought a battery operated backpack sprayer, and you wet the surface, and we tested it with water first and time to see how it was all going to work, and it went really well. I can get to the worship center, which is at the right spray rate, to end up with a damp surface and this is on cloth seats on our chairs. We have just loose chairs. So I can zip through the area. We wait till it's emptied out, and we zoom through, and I can do a large space in about 5 minutes, and it dries in about 10 to 15 minutes. So when the next group comes in, it was already dry. And you can use it on any surface, really, hard surfaces, wooden pews, chairs. It's a neutral pH product. So that's what we've been doing.
Great. Anybody else? Dave?
What we ended up doing, I've got electrostatic sprayers on back order, but from the time of purchase, they were saying 9 to 12 weeks. I was able to get hold of a whole bunch of spray bottles. So what we're doing in between services on our cloth surface, I'm only using Spartan's Clean by Peroxy because I know it's safe on the cloth. We don't have that much hard surface. Like our theater seats have like a wooden armrest. So we're going through, we're spraying the fabric with a mist so it dries in time, because we've only got half-hour turnover between services. And then we've got our volunteers, and we're using our other ministry staff to go through and spray, then wipe it down. We try to leave it sit as long as possible, but I know all we're doing is sanitizing. We are not disinfecting. So that's how we've been handling it, is, using ushers, getting other volunteers in. I've got cleaning staff that isn't normally there on Sunday, but we're making it an all hands on deck event so that all of my staff is there when they're not usually there for Sunday services.
Okay. Stephanie?
One of the things my cleaning product distributor said was you cannot disinfect a dirty surface. And so he said, technically, we need to clean the surface first and then disinfect it. And that's very time consuming, man-hour wise. I didn't know if anybody had a comment about that.
That is technically correct. Now, if you take a, let's say a wooden pew, and it has been cleaned, if someone just sneezes on that or coughs on that and gets some droplets on it, you're not talking about a lot of dirt or grease or grime there. You can come back and spray that clean surface, and it should be an effective kill. Now, when I started looking for electrostatic sprayers, one thing I realized very quickly, there are companies, hundreds of them, that had never even thought about marketing or making an electrostatic sprayer until this virus came out. As I was looking at the products online on their websites, I noticed that there were a lot of misspelled words. The grammar wasn't right. That's a good indication that whoever put that page together is probably not an English-speaking person. And so I went with the Victory. I wasn't expecting them until July. I got my Victory sprayer in about 2 weeks ago. The factory has ramped up. But be careful as you're searching for things that everybody else is searching for. There are people out there trying to rip you off. So do be careful.
Yeah, one thing I'll point out, the Pathosans, the Pathocide that Matt mentioned, is a sanitizer / disinfectant. So if you use it briefly, wipe it off, whatever, you've just cleaned it. And then if you let it sit, you disinfected it. So when we're spraying down our chairs in the auditorium, they're soft. So there's no cleanings that's going to happen that's going to get rid of anything else. So we're just spraying them with a Victory sprayer. And in other venues, we have plastic chairs. We're spraying the same thing. We're just hitting them with electrostatic. But as we're going into our classrooms, we're having teachers clean the desks at the end of the day or throughout the day using the Patho Clean, and then they'll be spraying it down with the Pathocide at the end of the day. And hopefully that'll be taking care of all the junk that just gets on there. And then I saw Mark Darby had his hand up earlier.
Mark, where are you?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm with the Kingwood Church of Christ. We're a suburb of Houston. I'm going to go back on something we talked about a little earlier just quickly, and then I'll come up to this current topic. But we have an average attendance of about 400 on a normal Sunday. We shut down until the first weekend in June. We were open for 3 weeks under a voluntary protocol, basically requesting people to wear masks. It worked very well the first week. People didn't linger too long. The second week is a totally different picture. We got bigger attendance and more people not wearing masks. But the most important thing for me right now is the topic we're on. Is what's the best way to disinfect? And we've tried some different products. I have a fogger ordered, but I'm particularly interested in if those of you that have good experience with something. If you could share it in the chat, the links on some of the things have been shared in the chat, but that would be extremely valuable to me. And we're doing okay, but we wound up having to shut down our service this past week, and we are shut down until further notice because Houston in particular and several of the major cities in Texas are experiencing major peaks. And so I was very proud of our leadership to say, we got to stop this for a little while. So we're kind of on hold right now. But that's kind of it for me.
Well, you mentioned how you've closed back down. One of the questions submitted was, has anybody that has opened, had they had to close back down either because of spike in cases or local government? So it sounds like that affected you, Mark. Anybody else that has opened that's had to close back down? Okay. Moving on. Anybody make any mistakes that they would not do again that you want to share with us? That was one of the questions.
Well, one of the things that our pastors asked for was the 6-foot distance stickers or marks in our lobby. And it just kills me to put tape on a floor. And so I got involved early and said, let's do a Pill and Stick logo, our logo, professionally done. And I got a laser in the lobby, and we have a Pill and Stick logo every 6 feet. And it looks really professional. But he said, we want it on the sidewalk out front. And I said, no, it won't stick to concrete. And it's not going to stick outside. And I don't like that residue everywhere. So I put my thinking cap on. We went with a marker paint, a similar color to our logo, a marker paint. I made a mask, and the marker paint is supposed to last 60 days, or I could pressure wash it off. So like you'd see those orange marker paints. Well, I found a nice blue color, and I did the squares on our front patio, but I am really sort of opposed to it. It actually turned out very well, and it doesn't look too bad at all. And so it was one of those 6-foot spacing, distancing type things.
Well, that's better than the 6-foot hula hoop idea that I've heard about.
Yeah.
Someone, go ahead, Stephanie.
Now, along that same line, how do you, when you have a pew and people are coming in and they're 1s and 2s and 5s, how have you kept them 6 feet apart? Do you don't have a 6-foot ruler?
Well, we can get pretty close. Our ushers seat people. And like someone else said, we rope off half the pews. Of course, the very first Sunday we were open, a guy walked in and removed the rope and sat on a roped off pew. But that's where he always sat. And he was expecting to be able to sit there. So, we're dealing with that. I'm sure a lot of you are dealing with that too. Joe?
We have stack chairs, movable seats. So we set the worship center up in groups of singles, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and we space them out at 6 foot. And we load the worship center front to back coming in, and we exit back to front. And you can move, if you have a group of 2 and you need an extra chair, you can always slide right to left. You can't go front to back, and you maintain that spacing. And I mean, we have seats for 220. We didn't have maybe 100 in there at one of the services. So there was a lot of open spaces, and people had places so families of 6 or 7 could sit together. If it's a single or a 2, they could sit in the 2, and it worked out pretty well.
Okay. Mark Brown mentioned that in his area, the social distancing front to back is 10 feet. Now here, I've heard that 6 is not far enough, but that's what they're asking for and enforcing. Has anybody else heard anything about a 10-foot distance requirement front to back? Mark, are you on here? Mark Brown, are you here today?
I saw that in the news where some scientists were proving that and were showing that in that distance, but none of our government officials have pushed for that.
Okay. All right. Anybody that has opened, have you closed because of a lack of attendance?
Gary, I'm going to jump in here. First, to answer your other question, we've been open very long, like I said, 8-10 weeks, and we have not even thought about closing. We're probably go up to 3 services before that. But back to your other question about the distance, we have some nice signs that our communication department came up with, and it basically says, to be a loving congregation, we ask people to wear a mask. And this goes back to the 6 foot, 10 foot, all this kind of stuff. If everybody's wearing a mask, that's possible. We do have a seating section that's non-mask for medically people that can't wear them for some reason. But we ask everybody out of loving care for others, as Patrick talked about. You wouldn't even know that you're passing it on. And so that's why it's important for everybody to continue wearing the mask.
One of the questions submitted is, where can you find sanitizer and sanitizing and disinfecting wipes? I know for a long time you couldn't find them on any of the shelves. Your suppliers and people are starting to come back with disinfectants. The hand sanitizer we couldn't find anywhere. And I found a hotel motel division of Cisco. And they had products that Cisco didn't have. We were able to buy hand sanitizer in gallon jugs and paid way more than it was worth for it. That's the way this thing works. Was in Walmart 2 days ago and went back to look at the sanitizing wipes, and the shelves were empty. But on an end cap, I found they had one end cap that was Clorox and another one that was Lysol. I bought 6 of each, and they did not question the quantity. So things are loosening back up. I think you will find those easier and easier to find.
Troy's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's got these suppliers nearby, but Buckeye has been a pretty good supplier of wipes, disinfectant wipes, and they've been pretty consistent in staying in, what's the right word, in supply of those. And then Eon, an office supply chain, we've got plenty of hand sanitizer from them on the regular. So Buckeye and Eon have had both of those from a commercial standpoint to supply.
Great. Someone asked, what are some effective HVAC outside air settings? Anytime you have a room full of people, you're supposed to be bringing in outside air. I know on our units, we have economizers. If there's nobody in the room, the outside air is not brought in. As the sensors detect carbon dioxide, the more people in the room, the more outside air that is brought in. Outside air definitely helps disperse this and reduces the concentration of it. Anybody else got experience or comments on that? Dave? You're still muted, Dave.
I've got one space that on our first weekend back, I tried to increase the airflow because I can go from a standby mode to an occupied mode. So it brings in a larger quantity of outside air because normally it only brings in like 10%. But what happened was that day, the outside ambient temperature was only 70 degrees. The inside temperature was 70 degrees. And what happened was it was causing it to bring in more outside air with higher humidity, and it wasn't kicking in the condensers on the air conditioning unit. So everybody was complaining about the temperature, and then I went and looked at things, and then I finally figured it out. Well, the outside is low. It's not calling for cooling. So then I ended up putting it back into our regular standby mode and went with the standard in order to get room temperature. I mean, the temperature in the room was 70 degrees, but it was the humidity was the problem. And then I do have for our main venues, I've got them on back order right now with UV light sources to put in that are supposed to kill airborne particles.
Stephanie's got her hand up, Gary.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
We're in the middle of getting a consult with our HVAC system, trying to figure out how much extra air we can take in from the outside. We typically are running 90 to 100 degrees, in July and August in Richmond, Virginia. So, but our system is extremely antiquated, and we are thinking we're going to be very limited. The other thing that was brought up is increasing the gauge of the filters that we have on our system. Regarding the UV lights, there's 3 options from what I understand. The UV lights in the main system, and then in the ductwork, or even, there's systems that you can put in the room or the sanctuary itself. So any comments on that?
Who's using ultraviolet light?
Hey, Mark Slimer, can you weigh in on this?
Mark, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I opted to go with something other than the UV light. UV light's great for keeping the coil mold free. but I passed on to Patrick a brochure on a device that breaks up the air molecules, the positive and negative atoms.
Is that the ozone?
Similar to that. And it attacks it that way. It's pretty pricey, but you don't have to bring in outside air if you do that. I looked at, like you've spoken about, bringing in outside air, but with our heat, humidity in Charlotte, then that just brings on more of a load for the chiller to overcome that humidity. So we're opting to go with this new system that will attack the molecules and not bring in outside air. We also did look at changing the filter, going to MERV 13. We currently are at MERV 7. But when you go to that stronger filter, it puts a lot more pressure on the fan motor and on the ductwork. And so we opted not to do that either.
Okay.
It really is a large engineering discussion. You really need to bring in that mechanical engineer when you're making those kind of changes. Dave's got his hand up again, Gary.
There you go, Dave.
Yeah, just to reinforce what Mark said, I was looking at increasing the MERV rating on our filters, but when I worked with our mechanical contractor, they said the same thing. It was going to increase the head pressures. So we can't go beyond what we're currently using, which is, I think, like a MERV 7 or 8, because we were looking at going to HEPA rated. That wasn't going to work. But what they came up with was this UV source, and it's going to only cost like $600 a unit. It's got a magnet that sits on the drive motor, and then they just have to wire it into the low voltage side of our HVAC system. Now, some of our units are over 20 tons, so they have to put in multiple units, but that's what we're looking at. So that was the best we could come up with because we couldn't increase the MERV rating on the filters.
And what is that called?
I'll have to go back and look, and I can post it into the forums later.
Well, when I first got here, we did not have an energy management system in place, and the thermostats weren't locked. And on a hot summer week, one of the Mother's Day out teachers put the fans on continuous. And here in Tennessee, we have some heat and humidity, and it peeled the wallpaper off the walls. So if you need to remove wallpaper in the South, just bring in that outside air. We have covered most of the questions. Any other topics that weren't submitted? Like I said, we did condense these questions. And what else is on your mind? We're here. Anybody got anything? Dave, go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious to some of the things that we're doing, I think excessive. Like we've got restrooms that can take 8, but what we did is, switching them down to just the ADA stall and then our urinals. And then we've got an attendant outside so that every time someone goes in, then they're just cleaning those contact surfaces. I talked to our local hospital. They're only cleaning their restrooms like 3 to 5 times a day for their public ones. And then there's a lot of stuff that's inconclusive on trying to clean the fabrics in between surfaces in, the worship spaces. It just doesn't seem to work on the fabric. So I think some of this, we're trying to make people feel comfy to come back, but I mean, we're also using a lot of resources that I just don't know how effective it is.
Dave, I've got a comment on that. I call this, you're right. We're trying to make people feel comfortable and reduce their anxiety. That's a large part of it because I think the media is driving this big fear. At the same time, I've had several folks contact me that said, man, I'm not sure I'm behind what we should be behind. And the science changes daily. Don't wear a mask. Wear a mask. Oh, masks aren't effective. N95. Don't wear N95. So there's a lot of information coming, and governors and city leadership are making decisions, and they're telling us what we have to do. And in other places, they're like, oh, churches don't have to worry about that. And so we kind of have to find what is it that we have to do, and we'll go there. But in regard to the restrooms, I'm thinking that it's probably the least likely place that you're going to get it. The CDC says you're not likely to pick this up from contact with a surface. Most likely to be an aerosol from being in close contact with someone within 6 feet for 15 minutes. So if we're distancing and we're wearing masks and we're not spending a lot of time together, I'm thinking if you're actually washing your hands in the restroom like you should be, that's probably the least likely place that you're going to get it. And so with 100 people in a venue, we just figured we'd clean it after that service, because 100 people are there for an hour or a little plus. You may have 10 people that use those restrooms. That's my 2 cents.
Rob had his hand up.
Yeah, there's an epidemiologist I know that's pretty knowledgeable about a lot of this stuff and watches all the CDC information really closely. And CDC has put out that on porous surfaces such as drapes and carpet and fabric, they think it lives for a week or less. And so in our sanctuary, where we have padded pews and carpet, we're just having one service and we're not going in there for a week. So we're not attempting to even sanitize any of that. We think we're probably safe.
Yeah. That's correct. Without moisture, the virus is not going to live on a hard surface more than 3 days. We did not start spraying our sanctuary till we started having multiple services, and we don't have them multiple services on the same day yet. But we've started having Bible studies and Sunday school classes, not in classrooms, but in some of these larger areas that we are disinfecting and sanitizing. Is anybody else started having Sunday school classes, Bible studies, anything like that? Anybody? Okay, Tom, you are?
Yeah, we've got a weekly things with a lot of different classes. They're starting to ramp up even this week. And we've went to a protocol in the evening, trying to keep track of whatever rooms that have been used, and then just fogging these rooms at the end of a night, and then just starting off with a fresh surface every day. And then trying to, if it's a big group, we'll go in behind that big group in between meetings, if it's something like going on with that. But, people coming and going, it's just hard to control every room. So that's why we're trying to get the whole building nightly.
As far as bathrooms, of course, we deep clean and sanitize, disinfect on Fridays. My custodians on Sunday, once a service starts, they'll go in the bathrooms and disinfect. The next time a service starts, they'll go in and do it again. So we probably clean them twice on Sunday morning.
Yes, I got a question. Hello?
Yeah, Leon.
Yes, I sent a question in. We're very small church, about 200. Sometimes it runs about 80 to 100 on Sundays. And my pastor wants me to put a draft together. How we gonna open this place, open up again? And I'm kind of lost, because one thing is, I don't know how many times I'm listening at y'all talk about how many times you disinfecting the bathrooms, and the part that gets me is that our daycare shares the part of the sanctuary during the week, and they have the whole north side of the building through the week. So a lot of rooms we don't use on Sundays over on the north side because of that. We use one room. And I just think how many people, I'm just got to figure out how many people do I need, because we're short of people as far as disinfecting. We have a cleaning crew that comes in 3 times a week and clean, but disinfecting this and the sanctuary with cloth seats. How many, we think about getting an electrostatic cleaner, sprayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to do some more research on it, because there's a lot of electrostatic machines out there, and some of the stuff that they use, you can't use it on the cloth seats.
Right. Do you have more than one service on a Sunday in your church?
No, just one right now.
Okay. Is that room used for anything else during the week besides the daycare?
No.
We don't have a licensed daycare. We have a Mother's Day Out program, and we shut it down. Now, it may come back in the fall, but I haven't heard on that.
Well,
Go ahead.
Our daycare is a licensed 501c3.
Yep.
And right now we have, I think it's back up to 10 now since all this started. Since this COVID started, and we definitely have the daycare. And then again, the daycare is kind of what keeps us alive too, you know.
Right.
So we need the daycare.
Okay. Stephanie, go ahead.
I'd like to hear from the group about opening up your building to outside groups. For instance, our church can have as many as like 80 bookings, 80 rooms a week booked for different outside groups. It's right now we don't have any of that.
We quit doing it outside groups. If it's not a ministry of the church, we used to host the Boy Scouts and all these different groups and family reunions and all kinds of things like that. And we just don't anymore. Who else?
I was going to say, these are ministry groups. We don't have, but these are like, we have like 120 mission partners. So it's a lot of ministry related groups, but we're not having any of them either.
Paul had his hand up. It may be related, Paul. Let me unmute you real quick.
Our church is the largest church in our area, so we handle the graduations for all the high schools in our area, and we shut all that down. We don't have anything. We haven't opened up yet, and we're not really looking at when we are at this point. But it just seems like it's, and we're still getting requests, but it's we figure if we're not opening up church on Sundays, we're not going to open up for any other outside institutions.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw Marie had her hand up, I think, in response to Stephanie.
I'll comment. We have not opened up yet. We have had watch parties, and we had a session meeting last week, and we are only opening up to certain organizations, and that will be selected by me and a couple other people who get to use the building, because no one has been used the building since we have shut down, and we're in Ohio.
We're in Colorado, and currently we're allowed to have 50% or 50 people, whichever is less. So we have not opened up. We've just recently started allowing life groups. If they want to reserve a room and come in during certain times during the week. And I've had one group out of like 40 that have taken advantage of that. We're hoping to open the first Sunday in August, but the last 2 weeks and continuing through July, we've been having an outdoor drive-in service and have had pretty good response to that. But we will not be allowing any outside groups whatsoever, and we're not even sure about what the Bible studies will look like. We want to start with Sunday morning worship, and then we'll go from there. I don't know what the fall is going to look like as far as Awana programs and midweek Bible studies and all of the other different small group activities that we have. At this point in time, we're just shutting pretty much everything down.
Yeah, we have to. Chris?
Joe had his hand up. Can we get him real quick?
Chris, if you would host for me for a second, I've got to run to the little facility manager's room.
You bet. Joe, go ahead.
Well, so we're in Pennsylvania once again, and we just opened up for the youth, the high school students. on Sunday evenings every 2 weeks through the summer. So we just started that, and we have opened up the facility for any of the regular small group ministries that we had, whether it's facing addictions or a men's ministry or a women's study. Not everybody has rushed to sign up. Some are still doing Zoom and are comfortable with Zoom and not comfortable coming into the building, but we are starting to have a little trickle in of people that want to use the building. Now for as far as children, we have no children during regular services, and our preschool won't open again until the fall, and we're evaluating. At the time being, that's not going to get opened up until we maybe hear a little bit more about what schools are doing and what the school district's doing locally too. So that's kind of where we're at. And then just to go back to the cleaning, we had a group of 4 volunteers with the bathrooms, and we just basically between the services went through and wiped down all the touch surfaces, which is with the type N disinfectant in the bathrooms between the services. And same thing, after Sunday second service, we don't touch the space, we just let it time out.
Yes.
But we did spray after Saturday night. We did spray and wipe every surfaces down, and after Saturday evening and between services.
Thank you, Joe. Dave, I see your hand, but before you say something, Dave, just to remind everyone that we're all in different states. We all have different leadership. There's different interpretations out there on the market. And as facilities managers, our role is to try to support the leadership of the church as well, and see where their head is about it and try to be there for them and with them. Keep these things in mind. Dave?
Yeah, here in Michigan, we got shut down in March. And we just started back with services. We're not doing much. I'm starting to see some bookings for internal ministries, but we are supporting our 2 different groups, like our Celebrate Recovery group and our Narcotics Anonymous group. Initially, they were just starting off at like 10 people each. Our CR group is much larger. They met for the first time this week, and I think they had like 40 or 50, but the space is large enough to accommodate. We're going to start seeing some of our discipleship groups coming back. And then like with our children's ministry on weekends, right now, they're not going to do anything on weekends until September, because our pastor for that is a retired school principal. So he's waiting to see what the school systems are due. And then we're even pushing our nursery back even farther. And then our preschool's got all kinds of new restrictions for when they start up in September.
Well, let me add then, and I'll hand it back to Gary. We've got some stuff in the chat over here. We're recording this session as NACFM board for you guys. We hope to maybe make that available. Our forums on our website really is the tool for this dialogue to occur at a little slower pace, to give you a chance to get to those forum posts at the end of the day or when you have a chance. And it won't be as quick as this type of forum. But read the chat session over there. If you've not done that yet, click on chat at the bottom and download that. And for some of you who came in a little late, we did start at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And so you may have missed some of that, and that's where you may want to see the rest of that recording. Gary?
Okay, well, I was going to mention the same thing about our forum. After we had the Zoom business meeting and the Zoom meetings from our conference, instead of able to meet in person, it was a poor substitute for an in-person conference, but this technology sure lets us get together and share ideas. After those meetings, the board determined that we would try this. And within 24 hours of that last Zoom meeting, we started getting messages from members like you suggesting maybe a monthly Zoom meeting like this, a get together on various topics. So does that sound like something would be useful to you? Now, we're not in it just to be meeting or to hear our voices, but if this has value, I see a lot of thumbs up out there. Well, you either use the forum or email. My email is president@nacfm.com. Very easy. If there's a topic that you would like to have us expound on together as a group, just let us know, and we'll try and pick a day and time to do this. Any other things related to our topic today? Josh, did you have your hand up earlier? Did we miss you on something? Okay. Anybody else got anything?
Chuck Weathers has his hand up.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, we're going to be opening on the 12th of July for services, and we've already opened the soft for staff and preschool, but I'm wondering about other churches of what they've done for memorial services. We've had a number of people pass away from the congregation just in the last couple of weeks. And what have they done for memorial services?
I got Rick Burton.
Hey, Chuck, we just finished a funeral about an hour ago, and we limited it to 100 people, and from Texas, Houston area. Of course, y'all know what's going on down here. We're blowing it back up again, so the governor's shut a few things down. So we just put in folding chairs, hard chairs, so we didn't have to worry about the cushion chairs. And we put out, spaced them, and like guys have talked about earlier, groups of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and planned on something north of 100. And we had about 60, including our staff. So people are still, especially now down here, people are still freaking out about it. And this is our second funeral. The first one we did about a month ago, we had 12 people and planned on 50. So we required everybody to wear a mask, and it went off well. People pretty much came in, sat down, and went right back out. So that's pretty much it.
We've had 2 small ones. As far as larger, we've had a couple of people pass away that would be extremely large funerals. A charter member, 55 years, passed away. They're waiting to have a memorial service when we're able to have more people in. But we have had 2 funerals, and they were small in nature, and we were able to do the social distancing. Anybody else on funerals?
Sandy and John have their hand up. Sandy?
We probably had about 6 to 10 of them. And what we started with was 50 people, and that put we still are at 50 people, but the family was having to manage who those 50 people were. And we found that was a real heavy burden on the family to decide, who's my friends that can come, who is all that. So what we've done is said family only, to take some of that burden off of the family who is approved. Because, if you're involved in a Sunday school class and a Sunday school class got 100 people in it, then you're having to, the widow or the family's having to pick who comes. So to make it easy for them, we did that. We're doing that. Our motto is what we're doing. We're being consistent. So we're taking temperatures. You have to wear a mask. We're not passing out funeral bulletins, but we're putting funeral bulletins in seats so that it makes it 6 feet apart, because we're a pew church. So we don't have the option to designate seats. So we have found that's helpful to us. We're dismissing. We're not gathering in our narthex. You come in, you sit down, find a bulletin, sit down, and we're dismissing by rows so that you're not lingering and gathering in the church. We found that to be helpful.
Ken, I see your hand. John Bernard had his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, John Bernard from Colorado. We have four campuses in the Denver area, and it's a different subject, but we can seat about 1,000 people on average on a normal service. And now that we're going to be going every other row and take into account member of household, what's the average amount of people per party that are coming in, or what's the capacity that we'll be able to put into the auditorium? Are we looking like 25% if we're able to sit 1,000 people? I'm just trying to get an idea, a feel, because we're not open for service, and I don't know where we're going to be. But
Well, John, we'll throw that question out, but Ken still had his hand up there on this same topic.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to. We've had some large funerals. I'm up in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, and we've had some large funerals here. And what we've asked the families to do is give us a list of the people by family that can sit together. So then we're lucky that we have movable chairs, and so we've arranged the chairs by family so that we can get more people into the space. And it's worked out really well. One of our funeral directors started that for us, and it's working out just fantastic now, because if you have a family of 6 or 7 people, we don't have to social distance them. You know, if they all live together anyway, they might as well sit together. And as far as the other masses that we're doing, we do a live stream on Saturday nights, which was new to us, but we're also doing that for funerals now. So we do only allow the families to come in, but then we live stream it out, and that's been very, very popular with the families, knowing that that they've been able to have their friends out there watching them. In fact, we had one for a family that had a large group of family members that was out of this country, and they were so appreciative of it that we were able to live stream it out all over the world for them.
That's a great idea. Ken Minus, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, thank you. We've started out with no funerals until a few weeks back, and we decided to do 25%. So we have a chapel that would be about 50 people, and our sanctuary would be 500 people. And the last 2 Saturdays, we've actually had 2 community outside funerals. One was like 450 and one was 300 and some. They were young high school people that died. One was a drowning and one was a car accident. And there was no other venue to do these services. So we said, yes, we would allow it. And we ran it just like we do our Sunday services, other than we did not require registration. We just required the distancing in the pews, and we let, as they ushered, we just made sure that they left, in our case, 3 seats between each family unit. It seemed to work out pretty good, other than the one that was from Africa. They had a hard time understanding social distancing, and they started taking down ropes.
I posted that question, Gary, in the chat that John had asked.
That's the capacity on 1,000. Yeah.
So every state has different requirements. Our governor had said phase 1 was 10 people, and then he said 50 people. And then phase 2, he started saying 50% of capacity. So we looked at that. We actually went in and tried to set rows 6 feet apart. And to one of these points you'll see in the group chat there, once you try to do the social distance with chairs, you really can't get to 50% with a chair. So, we were at 1,000 is what the architect allows on the floor. Once we put in a plastic chair and spaced out rows, about 6 chairs each, 6 feet away, then you really are limited to about 25 to 30% of what that room will hold.
I'll also put that in some more context. In Wisconsin here, we don't have any restrictions as far as the state. They're just asking that we follow the CDC and maintain social distancing. Our big room can handle 1,800 as far as fixed seats. We're using brush fire, using the social distancing. Every other row is pre-blocked out, and then what they do is they add 3 seats in between each order or each household. Our largest service maxed out this last Sunday at about 420 people. So it's 1,800 seats with social distancing of households. About 420 is what we ended up on. So it's a pretty dramatic reduction in what you can get in the room. Obviously, if you have lots of groups of 2 coming in, somebody sitting with just their spouse, and you put 3 seats on either side, that's 2 people are taking up 8 seats. So that's just kind of to help you out.
Anybody got a question or comment on a topic that we haven't talked about related to reopening? I think we've covered. Has anybody submitted a question that we didn't cover today?
Good question.
It's not really COVID related, but just looking at the names and faces that are showing up here, it looks like there's a lot of new names that I don't recognize. So if you're new here, wave. We would like to welcome you. And as Gary has mentioned a couple of times, while the Zooms are okay, it's good to be able to see people's faces. It's good to be able to connect in a very direct fashion. Without the delay as part of the forum, but the forum is 24/7. So I really encourage you to get on there. I'm hoping maybe Chris could ask Sherry to download the information that's in the chat here, and we can repost that on the forum with the links so that people have access to that in the future. There's also a way you can click and save the chat too, but to make it to put it out there to as many members as possible. The other is if I know we've got some other folks that are not members here. You're welcome, and I encourage you to go to the site, check it out. Make sure you keep your memberships up to date so that the forums are accessible to you. You'll get the notifications via email if you opt in on that, so that you'll know a new topic has come up. I get a what do you call that, Chris? A synopsis.
A weekly summary, they're called.
Weekly summary. So you'll know, hey, okay, there was a bunch of them came through this week while I was really busy or while I was just unplugged. But what a great way to stay in touch. And we do want to stay in touch with you, and we want to hear what's going on as we're all going through this. And it seems like it's different in every city, in every state. There is no two places that are going about this the same way. And yet we're all relying on the same tools or the same lack of materials, equipment. We can't get a victory sprayer. We can't get chemicals. So chemicals are horribly expensive. This is the same for all of us. I've got a call to make today that one of the things I did, I want to say 2 weeks ago, it was the week of our conference. We had done our membership meeting. And that night, even though I was at home not feeling well, I participated in a local webinar with South Seattle Community College, hosted by our associate member, Vicki Hardy, and to talk about COVID strategies and reopening in all kinds of facilities. And I was paired up with 3 really professional folks in really large facilities. One, which was the hospital down the street from my house, which was at the very beginning of the major wave of COVID cases in Kirkland, Washington, and the facilities operations director there. And he texted me afterwards and he says, hey, give me a call when you're feeling better, because we have PPE. We have more PPE than we can use, and we can donate it to you as a nonprofit. And yet everywhere I'm hearing in the news is that the hospitals don't have enough PPE and they're reusing N95 masks. And he's like, man, I got to get rid of some space. So it's so different depending on where you are, because I doubt if anybody's going to get that offer in New York City.
Right. Patrick encouraged you to use the form to post questions. I would encourage you to answer questions. Each of us has a different background. We each have different strengths. We all had previous lifetimes before we became a church facility manager. So keep an eye on that forum. We need your expertise to answer questions for other members. Anybody else? Well, thank you so much for participating.
John,
go ahead, John.
Yeah, we have not opened up yet. We're not opening up till the 12th, so I can't speak from any experience. So I'm curious. Everybody seems to have a different comfort level with how close they'll get to other people. Some will just run up and hug somebody, and others want the 6-foot or 10-foot distancing. And knowing that we've been closed for so long, my thought is that when we finally do open our doors in a couple of weeks, that there'll be a lot of reuniting going on. A friend at a local church came up with an idea that I have not heard being in use anywhere, where they're handing out 3 different colors of wristbands, a green, a yellow, and a red. Green saying, hey, I'm open to hugs or what have you. You know, I'm not worried, not concerned. And yellow, you know, I'm still a little bit cautioned, but hey, you know, feel free to walk up and engage me. To red is stay away. I want at least 10. And, you know, and I'm just curious if something like that, if anybody thinks that is just a ridiculous idea, or, you know, with everybody's different level of comfortability, that, you know, we're trying to make people feel comfortable. You know, I see Chris is having a good time with that one. Anybody heard of such a thing being attempted or something similar, and if it was helpful or a waste of time?
What does it mean if you have a really big belt buckle on? You know, like, does that not mean something too?
I had not heard of that idea, John. That's a new one, but you could use that in church at any time. I've got some people in this church that are just huggers. I've got other people, if you try to hug them, they'll recoil. So you might use those even after the emergency's over.
We put up really big A-frame signs as you step out of your car on the parking lot that create an encouragement of what the staff's goals are to make people feel cared for. And then that sets sort of the standard. And there are people breaking the rule, because it says right on the sign, please no hugs or handshakes. But there are some ladies running up and hugging each other. But the sign is out there to help sort of keep people under a certain goal of what we're doing. And then we've had many people walk up, and if they see the staff wearing a mask, they'll put one on, even though we have no signs that require masks. But because the staff are wearing them, some will put them on, others will start to carry the mask in and decide if they're going to put it on or not. So just sort of creating a culture of grace is what our goal is.
Yeah.
Tom?
One thing our pastor brought up, which I thought was really good, I mean, we want to be open and friendly to everybody, but the last thing we want to do is be on the 5 or 6 o'clock news because we had an outbreak. So whatever we can do to avoid, we don't want to chase people away. We want to welcome them, but we got to be smart about what we do.
I agree with that.
Just, when you this is just a random, but when you register people ahead of time, those of you that are already doing it, is any of your registration set up on a waiver, you know, where you sign, you know, I agree that I'm not going to come and all of that? No.
We do not have any legal language in ours.
I believe, Stephanie, that ours has a list and just says, hey, here's what our protocols are. You need to not have any symptoms. You need to not have a fever. Please, if you do, for the sake of all, stay home, stay healthy, stay at home. And that we are asking that you wear a mask and that you sit with your family group or whatever. So it's spelled out in there, but then we don't like police it when they come in. We just check them in and show them where their seats are.
Well, as I look at the screen, I see some squares where I'm only seeing people's forehead. And then there's been other people where all I've seen all day is their chin. So as you join Zoom meetings, kind of look at the picture there. And if all you see is your forehead, that's all we're seeing. And, you know, I'm old school. It's taken me a while to get used to all this. And I was supposed to put these questions up on the screen and share the screen, but I'm not smart enough to do that. So I just had to read the questions. Anybody else got anything? Going once, going twice. I love what y'all do for your churches. I just pray blessings over you every day, that for you and your church and your family. They have to support you in the job you do. It's not just a 9 to 5, or in my case, 6 to 3 job. You're on call all the time, and it is appreciated. I hope you're appreciated by the people that worship at your church and the leadership in your church. But blessings to you, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Be thinking about topics. We may spend some more time on COVID next month. But if you have something that you think is applicable to everybody, by all means, send that to me or to Chris at education@nacfm.com. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. There were a lot of people I did not ever see on the screen. I'm seeing a couple of them as they sign off. We had 54, the highest number I saw. Chris, did you see anything higher than that? Was that? Okay. Well, that went well. Lee, I can't hear you. You're still muted.
Yeah, everything went well. I was really pleased with today and how everything has come out. There's a lot of enthusiasm there. I think we've hit upon a gold mine here as far as doing a monthly Zoom meeting.
How's your vacation, Lee?
Well, it rained the whole time, but other than that, we had a good time.
The first time I went to Florida, I was 13. I spent a week in a motel room watching